He said, she said for Gold Star families at Arlington National Cemetery. Let's talk about it on Azimuth Podcast. I'm Barrett McNabb, and with me is Kimberly McNabb. So last week, August 26th, President Trump was invited by Gold Star families to remember and have a memorial ceremony for the 13 service members that were killed in the extraction from Afghanistan 3 years ago. And so we're going to play a quick clip just to kind of give you some context of what this is going on.
All right, let me ask you about another one of the big headlines this week, Donald Trump's visit to Arlington National Cemetery. You've been talking about this. He attended a wreath-laying ceremony, obviously, for the 13 service members who were killed during the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. He was invited by those family members, important to say that. He also had campaign staffers with him. Photos, videos were posted on a campaign site. Taking campaign photos and videos at grave sites is forbidden under federal law. You, of course, served at Arlington Cemetery in the Old Guard, so I know that this is a sacred place for you. Bottom line, though, I guess, Senator, is it ever appropriate to make campaign content at military grave sites?
He didn't take campaign photos there. These families, Gold Star families, whose children died because of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's incompetence, invited him to the cemetery, and they asked him to take those photos because, as they told me yesterday when I spoke to Kelly Barnett and Darren Hoover, the parents of Taylor Hoover, who has Arkansas ties, they don't get to go to the beach on Labor Day. They don't get to have barbecues. This is their one chance to have a memory of their children, to commemorate their service and to honor their sacrifice. They wanted President Trump there. They wanted to take those photos. You know who the families also invited? Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Where were they? Joe Biden was sitting at a beach. Kamala Harris was sitting at her mansion in Washington, D.C. She was 4 miles away. 10 minutes. She could have gone to the cemetery and honored the sacrifice of those young men and women. But she hasn't. She never has spoken to them or taken a meeting with them.
Well, they did meet with them during the dignified transfer.
Because of
they were with them at the dignified transfer.
Her and Joe Biden's incompetence, those 13 Americans were killed in Afghanistan.
Okay, so we have to caveat this with she lied right there. The news anchor for NBC lied. Kamala Harris was not present at the dignified transfer ceremony when the fallen service members came to Dover and came off the airplane. And this is the famous part where the famous or infamous photograph where Joe Biden was checking his watch. Did it twice, but checking his watch, which was hugely disrespectful to the Gold Star families and to the service members that were coming off the plane. But the NBC had to recant that lie that the anchor told, and they did it via a tweet.
And instead of going on the air, which is the medium she lied on.
Exactly. So instead of having her come on and say, I was wrong, Kamala Harris was not at the dignified transfer ceremony, and so leaving at that note, it was a tweet not even sent out by her, but it was by NBC saying, oh, we got that wrong. But the thing is there were obviously millions of people saw that
and probably
show.
didn't follow up
and didn't follow up, and so well she was there. So this is, I find this ironic. So Kamala Harris sent out a tweet. We're not going to read the whole thing because it's so long, but she goes to say, as vice president, I've had the privilege of visiting Arlington National Cemetery several times. It's a solemn place and a place where we come together to honor American heroes, but not that day.
Right.
She didn't go that day. Because she's hugely responsible as the Harris-Biden administration's debacle of the Afghan withdrawal. She didn't want to face the music and face those hard questions by those Gold Star families. She was invited, and obviously Senator Cotton's talking about she was in her mansion. That's the Naval Observatory where the vice president resides in Washington, D.C., and was 4 miles away. Could have easily been there, very quickly and been enacted presidential. But she failed.
And she could have gotten similar shots as Trump.
Well, we're gonna talk about the shots as well because there were a number of controversies that came about. So we're gonna watch this this next clip with a Gold Star mother-in-law of one of the service members that was killed, and this is on CNN.
Monday was the third anniversary of the 13 U.S. military service members who were killed in Afghanistan at Kabul Airport's Abbey Gate. That was August 26, 2021. 3 of the 13 are buried at the Arlington National Cemetery. Former President Donald Trump visited the cemetery following a wreath-laying ceremony to honor those who lost their lives that day. He did so at the invitation of the families. A video of the visit posted by the Trump campaign on TikTok showed the former president walking through Arlington and visiting grave sites. It's a violation of federal law to use cemetery footage for campaign purposes. Prior to Trump's visit to Section 60, that's an area in the cemetery largely reserved for the graves of those who served in Iraq and Afghanistan. Campaign officials were made aware of federal laws which prohibit political campaign or election-related activities. They were asked not to take photos or videos for that purpose. The grounds are considered sacred and hallowed. An Army spokesperson said an employee who attempted to ensure adherence to these rules was, quote, abruptly pushed aside.
Now, I want to talk about this. So this is, to me, one of the there's two controversies, whether or not Trump used footage for campaign purposes or intended to use the footage for campaign purposes, and then also when a Arlington National Cemetery employee went to intervene and remind the campaign that you weren't allowed to take photos for campaign purposes and was pushed away. Okay, so that's assault. So let's go ahead and watch this a little bit more because we're going to see the Army statement.
The statement goes on to say, consistent with the decorum expected at ANC, this employee acted with professionalism and avoided further disruption. The incident was reported to the police department, but the employee subsequently decided not to press charges. Therefore, the Army considers this matter closed.
So that's the statement from the United States Army. This is unusual, and the news media have kind of capitalized on this. The Department of Defense and the U.S. Army typically do not issue statements of this type. But I have a huge problem with this because the Gold Star mother that we're about to hear is talking about that there was no altercation. And so in this instance, then that means somebody is lying. And I feel that this is important because if there was an assault committed, then the Arlington National Cemetery employee, it's a DOD employee, should have pressed charges. But the fact that they, called the police but then declined to press charges, to me, leaves just this stink in the air of crying wolf and throwing the smoke bomb and then saying, oh, never mind, nothing to see here. This just goes to show, in my opinion, that this probably did not occur. And there is supposedly footage from the Trump administration that we're going to hear about in a second that said this didn't occur, and we have footage to prove it. He hasn't released that yet. But to have the Gold Star mothers go and say, look, there was no physical altercation. So let's keep going.
Since Monday, accounts from the scene have varied. Former President Trump has insisted there was no violation of law. Communications director for the Trump campaign, Stephen Chung, posted on X that the campaign was granted access to have a photographer there. Chung also disputed claims of a physical altercation and has said there's video to back this up, yet none has been released thus far. Former President Trump published a statement on Truth Social from 5 family members, thanking him for making the visit and saying, we are deeply grateful to the president for taking the time to honor our children and for standing alongside us in our grief, offering his unwavering support during such a difficult time. Joining me now is one of those family members, Christy Shamblin, mother-in-law of Marine Corps Sergeant Nicole G. G, aged 23, was deployed to Afghanistan where she served as a female engagement team member to help facilitate evacuation support for Afghan women and children. She was killed in a suicide attack along with 12 other service members that day, leaving behind a husband. Christy, thank you so much for being here. Please tell me about Nicole.
Oh, thank you for having me. Nicole was a ray of light. She was an encourager. She believed in having a positive mental attitude, and she was so very proud to be serving on with the FET team in Afghanistan. She was very, very proud to serve there, and they all worked so hard to get the most vulnerable out of that country before, certain death. And we're very proud of her. And we want to continue on her legacy and being encouraging and having a positive mental attitude.
I'm so sorry for your loss, and I'm trying to understand what exactly went on Monday. You wanted the former president there. By the way, I think it's a wonderful thing that he was there, reflective and honoring our war dead. But it crossed a line at some point. How do you see it?
Well, first, I want to remind everybody that it's really hard to find a way on August 26th to celebrate, and we want to celebrate our heroes. We invited both President Trump and the Biden-Harris administration, and we didn't hear back from the White House. We were happy to welcome President Trump to lay wreaths with all three of our families and our wounded, some of our wounded from that day. And when he came to Section 60, it was at our request to spend time with our loved ones. There was not a press presence there. We privately took pictures among ourselves. And it was, a more celebratory feeling for that day because, we want to celebrate our loved ones, and it's very hard to find ways to do that. At a cemetery, but they were very respectful. We didn't see any altercation, and really we just want our loved ones to be honored and remembered in a positive way.
Yeah, so again, the two big things, whether or not there was an assault that happened and got pushed out of the way, this woman says that didn't happen, right? Mm-hmm. Consequently, the employee who first identified the assault and called the police later recanted, meaning they decided not to press charges. If somebody assaulted me, why would you not press charges? I think that the hand was caught in the cookie jar, and there were enough people there that said, no, there was no altercation. Okay, so I have heartburn with this because what it did, the second and third order effects, is it caused the United States Army to issue a statement, which is very rare for them to do. And that's important because it makes the news cycle, and it leaves this odor that the liberals can capitalize on. And again, it's obviously been disproven because if the person was assaulted, they would have pressed charges. They were authorized to have a camera person there. The Gold Star families requested that photographs and video be taken of them. And again, this is important to note. You see the main video of Trump walking down the stairs and playing the wreath at the head of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, which is what the old guard is protecting. Not only is Arlington National Cemetery a place where our heroes are buried, but it also is a home to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and that tomb is guarded day and night, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in inclement weather or in sunshine. And the old guard soldiers are well renowned to even when hurricanes happen or blizzards, they always volunteer to continue to do that. So they are great and wonderful Americans. So, but you see the regular video of Trump coming down to lay the wreath. But then it's captured for the TikTok as well. So it looks as though, to me, that the original video is it's a for record. You see President Joe Biden doing the exact same thing that Trump did, laying wreaths on Memorial Day and things like that. And it was later cut and snipped to make TikTok videos and things like, look, this is what I've done. So I would say that it's the initial intent was to have a record for the Gold Star families, and then the footage was used later on for snippets for that Trump put on his campaign. Again, going to the actual, there's 3 of the service members that are buried there from the Abbey Gate of the 13. And so Trump went with the Gold Star families to those particular graves and took photographs and videos at that spot at the request of the Gold Star families. They asked for that, and she even says that they asked for that. But what didn't happen was this giant gaggle of reporters and cinematographers and things like that are coming in and doing a television commercial. Also, there is a lot of famous people that are buried there. President Kennedy is buried there with his eternal flame. There are thousands of graves, and to have Trump walking through with this cinema, music and this production of lighting and shades and things like that, reflectors, and having this magical movie moment going through. That didn't happen.
Right.
And it is just the area and the gravestone where the Gold Star family members requested that they take photographs and video with President Trump.
Yeah, and Kamala Harris's tweet, I mean, that is just so disingenuous to me, because she was invited to President Biden, that both of them were invited. They decided to not show up, which makes, again, even if no pictures were taken, makes Trump look better. But, Kamala Harris cannot answer difficult questions. So if she had shown up, someone might have asked her some hard questions, because, again, she was, quote, the last in the room when the decision about Afghanistan had been made. So, yeah, I just think she didn't want to answer any tough questions. And now she's like, boo-hoo, I didn't get the photo ops.
Right. And to your point, being the president of the United States is hard. If anybody thinks that it is easy, I'm more than happy to debate you on that. But it is hard because you have to live with your decisions, right? And so
that's why people age so much.
Yeah, I mean, if you, I think the worst one was to show like Obama like on day 1. And
yeah,
then
he looks
Obama,
like he's 25, and then he looks like he's 45
on day 8 or 8 years, the end of 8 years. You can definitely see the man's aged. But still, this was an opportunity for Kamala Harris to come out and face the music and potentially
look presidential,
and not because she's filming, but because she's showing up and doing the hard thing.
Doing the work, as they like to say.
Exactly. I mean, showing up and talking to the families. Again, not doing a campaign commercial. Trump didn't do that either. But to show up and be there and participate in laying the wreath and commiserating with the Gold Star families, that is hard. It's hard to do, but that's what she should have done, because leaders do the hard things. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I just wanted to put this to bed. I don't think that there was an assault, because if there was, then the Army would not consider the matter closed. I don't think that there was a violation of federal law, because the Army considers the matter closed. So I think Kamala Harris got a news cycle out of this, and it was refuted by the Gold Star family members that were actually there and present, that said that the photographs were at their request and the video was at their request, and that there was no altercation and they were there. And so with the person that supposedly was assaulted dropping the charges and the Army saying we consider the matter closed, I have a feeling that this was a big giant nothing burger that Kamala Harris and the liberal media got to run around in circles, but
and cause a bad odor in the air.
Cause that bad odor.
I feel like this is just one of many attempts by the media to cause stink around Trump's name, such as the suckers and losers comment, which is fake. The Charlottesville fine people on both sides, which is fake.
Right.
I mean, just many examples of bad odor leaving a bad taste in people's mouths, and then that reflects on election day. Don't fall for it, people. You're smarter than that.
Yeah, I mean, it just it's kind of like any any courtroom drama, picket, Law and Order, whatever courtroom drama you're watching.
You're going to make the other side look bad.
Well, I mean, it's always, the attorney will ask a question that is, outrageous, and then let's say withdrawn. Like, you're a killer, aren't you? Withdrawn. Well,
or strike it from the record. The jury still heard it.
Jury still heard it. So in this particular instance, Trump's team assaulted a woman and violated federal law. Withdrawn. And right. the stink is still there.
Yeah, we don't have the Men in Black little flasher thing. You were not here. You don't remember this.
Right. And so again, that's just, it's been withdrawn by the Army. It's been withdrawn by the person who supposedly was assaulted. But the stink is still there, and that's really what's unfair in politics, and it was capitalized on by Kamala Harris's team. So we wanted to kind of put that to bed, especially with the words from the horse's mouth of the Gold Star family members about what actually happened. So thank you so much for tuning into Azimuth Podcast. Please stay tuned after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.